Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Postlewaite is absent. Councilmember Lester. Present. Councilmember McGinnis.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Here.
President Bendo.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of Acting City Manager Ron Walsh and Corporation Counsel Richard Barrios. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Since this is his last meeting, I'm going to ask our Corporation Counsel, Rich Barrios. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second meeting of February. And we'll start tonight. Do you have a city manager report?
Good evening, everybody. For tonight's city manager report, normally I answer the questions from the meeting before, but there really weren't any questions posed for me to get back. So I do want to bring up something that happened in the city on early Saturday morning. It's been in the news, but I would be remiss if I didn't state that early Saturday morning, around 2:15 in the morning, we had a Good Samaritan who was also a lifeguard in the city flag down one of the city's police officers. Happened to be Sergeant Judy Arroyo. Stated that there was a house on fire on West Penn Street. Sergeant Arroyo sees the house is on fire at this time. The Good Samaritan runs across the street, starts pounding on the door. They get the door open. They're looking inside for people in the house, and Sergeant Arroyo winds up running up the stairs. And the scene there was a fully engulfed house. The entire house was engulfed in flames, and she winds up running up the stairs and grabbing the owner of the house, who says, "Come on, we're out of here. We got to get you out." And takes him out. The Good Samaritan comes out, and as she's yelling up the stairs to see if anybody else is in the building, the fire flashes over, and she winds up putting her hands up to block the fire from her face. She winds up getting second-degree burns on her hands, on the top of her head, and on her ear. But it points out not only the danger, but the selfless acts sometimes that people do without even thinking to put themselves into harm's way. Our fire department, volunteer and paid, were there very, very quickly. Within moments of this happening, Sergeant Arroyo is resting right now. But I wanted to point out the excellent work of Sergeant Arroyo, of our volunteer and paid fire departments in keeping our city safe. And Long Beach has another hero today. So that's what I want to point out. That'll be the end of my city manager's report today. Thank you.
Okay, and just one other thing. Just want to wish a happy birthday to Councilwoman McGinnis.
Happy birthday.
Turns 29 today.
Happy birthday, happy birthday.
So, happy birthday, Karen. And we'll move on to the agenda.
Okay, as previously announced, items 8 and 9 have been removed from the calendar. We're going to call the public hearings out of order. We're going to call the waiver of off-street parking first. A public hearing for resolution granting waiver of off-street parking for premise 776 West Beach Street, street floor.
Good evening, everybody.
Can you
All right, good evening.
step up to the microphone, please? Thank you.
So I don't think there's too many people in the city
Name
not
and
familiar with Sorrento's. So can you tell us what you're going to be doing?
Sure. My name's Steve Cianciato. I'm the owner of Sorrento's in Long Beach. We're looking to build out next door, 776 West Beach Street, into a coffee shop, Italian pastry store.
Okay. Will it be connected to the current store, or it'll be?
No, it'll be separate.
Okay. What do you anticipate the hours to be?
Likely 7 a.m. to mid-afternoon, early evening, like 5 p.m.
Okay. All right. And about how many employees do you anticipate having?
3 to 4.
3 or 4. All right. Is there any other questions from the council members? By the way, I forgot to say the hearing's open. Any questions from the public? Ms. Adamo?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
Karen Adamo, 74 Forester Street. I just have one quick question. Does that mean you're not going back to your other location?
Wait, everybody needs to talk in the mic.
Sorry. That's likely the case, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean that we'll abandon the east side of Long Beach. So, no promises.
All right.
Sure.
All right, any more questions from the public?
You do deliver.
Mr. Delory?
Okay.
Mike Delory, Long Beach. Could you, this is just Rich, I just want to congratulate you on moving forward in your career. We'll miss you. I'm not opposed or I'm not supportive of this. It's more or less what I'd like to read is the City of Long Beach does not have a separate planning commission or formal procedure for site plan or special permit review. The city also lacks a formally appointed planning board or commission to act as the lead agency to determine State Environmental Quality Review Act compliance. As a result, both the City Council and the ZBA spend a significant amount of time addressing variances for projects. Many of these variance requests are for similar and relatively straightforward projects, such as off-street parking requirements for commercial businesses. I'm asking you to consider the establishment of a governing body dedicated to land use and development issues, such as a planning commission or a reconstructed architectural review board, which would also help to improve development process. I know we have an advisory board, but we don't have a formal established board that meets once a month, similar to the zoning board. And I'm also hopeful that the comprehensive plan that's being thought about is moved forward. So, in closing, Sorrento's is a very fine business. It's very popular. And I was also asked, I'm glad that Mr. Adamo asked the question if you're moving there or you're going to be here. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, and just, while it's not specific to this, there have actually been some conversations regarding what you're talking about lately. So it's definitely on people's minds. Any other questions or comments from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll close the hearing, and why don't we
Can we
vote
on
now?
this item? Okay. So this hearing is connected with item number 4 on the agenda, which is a resolution granting waiver of off-street parking requirements for premise 776 West Beach Street, street floor. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting. Councilmember Lester?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Vice President Treston?
Yes.
President Bendo?
I look forward to all the goodies, yes, and good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Circling back to our first public hearing is a hearing for a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the County of Nassau for the purpose of undertaking a community development program under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, as amended, for inclusion in the city's community development program for the 23-24 49th year.
All right, and I'll open the hearing on that, and I assume we're going to hear from Ms. Bourne.
Patty?
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about community development because it's a program that benefits the city by bringing in funding. These are funds from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development that are given first to the county, then the county in turn allows municipalities such as Long Beach to apply for the funding each year. The allocation is based upon a formula established by HUD. We have a 3-year contract with the county, which means that we're committed to working with the county for 3 years for this funding, and the funding we get should be used up in less time than 3 years, and we are committed to that. The directive from HUD for the use of the funds, called Community Development Block Grant Funds, there are 3 national objectives. 1 is to benefit low and moderate income people. 2, to aid in the prevention or elimination of slums and blight. And 3, disaster relief, such as we used after Sandy. You know, this law is over 50 years old, obviously, if we're going into the 49th year, so slums and blight aren't really terms used a lot, but it really means improvements in areas that are important to the city, such as our downtowns. And we can do these different improvements in many ways. Recent projects have included, just to give you some background, what called public facilities and improvements. We did recently a program at the MLK Center for the HVAC, for the heating and air conditioning. Sherman Brown Park is underway, and I've been working with our Commissioner of Recreation and Parks, Joe Brand, on that, and some of the work's been done and some will be done very soon with existing funds. And we can talk about if we need more funds, but we are focusing on that. There are funds for the ice arena, bathrooms and doors, the fire department, gear, which is on the agenda tonight as well. Transit-oriented development is a focus of the county and really fits in so well with our downtown to do development around the train station and the garages and the buses that make it easier for pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers to be safe to get around to where they need to go. And that was done with the improvements on Center Street just in the past year. Because the cost of construction is expensive, we look to do that kind of large project over several years of funding. And the last but certainly not least is public service, which we've discussed before. Unfortunately, HUD caps the amount available at 15% of the annual allocation for this line. And this funding can be used to benefit people with services, whether it's seniors or young people, outreach to special populations, and we have supported that area in many different ways, directly to nonprofits. Some programs are run by the city as well. And the programs also, and the county likes it when we use these HUD funds in coordination and cooperation with other funding and other priorities, such improvements on Park Avenue where we have some state money. So the submissions that we've talked, the proposals for the submission that we've gotten so far are to continue the transit-oriented development along National Boulevard, which is in our plans from the engineers, because now we've centered to the east side of City Hall. Now we want to look at the west side of City Hall, because there's certainly a lot of children use that area as well as adults. The children get off the buses, and we want to make it safe for them. Sherman Brown Park, Joe and I will be talking based upon what people want to see if we need additional funds. One program that has worked well is to provide jobs for young people, especially our high school students in the summers, and we want to continue with that. And general youth service programs, one's going on right this week through Joe's department, and senior services. Now, just the last part is important. Our application is due to the county by March 17th, literally. They close it off if we don't get it in by the 17th. Therefore, we're anxious to hear from you tonight on ideas that the public may have. And if someone has an idea and they don't want to talk about it or they think about it after the meeting, we'd be happy to take any ideas through email by emailing community, like in community development is a very clever idea, community@longbeachny.gov. That's our regular email address, so it's community@longbeachny.gov by next week, same time, so by the 28th, because that gives us time to write up the application, because it's online and of course it's very complicated. The resolution tonight is to apply and accept the funding, and that's it. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer or turn it over to the public.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Patty,
Yes.
the funding has to go to specific things.
Yes.
It has to go,
Your mic's not on.
it has to go, okay, it has to go within a specific area for specific people. And I don't quite understand that. What is the area exactly?
Well, I can understand. It's a little confusing because, based upon the census, the criteria that HUD uses to determine eligibility can change. So, for example, in the past, I've heard from people it included the West End, included the southeastern portion. At one time, the boardwalk was eligible, and now the county argues, we've tried, that it's not eligible because a lot of people from out of town use the boardwalk. So it changes over town based upon
What is it right now?
interpretation. The current interpretation is the census tract, which starts at, it's Park Avenue going north to the Bayfront, and it's from Long Beach Boulevard and the bridge all the way over to Lindell. So that is the area that's eligible. Within that area, we can do improvements to buildings, and we can serve people in that area who are considered low and moderate income because of the census tract designation. We also can serve people based upon where they live in other programs. So that is
I'm
the
sorry,
area.
when you say you serve other people depending on where they live.
Right, or the documentation. So if someone was eligible because they were low moderate income as based upon HUD requirements, and they lived on Penn Street or they lived on Shore Road, we can include them in the programs, and the staff have in the past.
Okay, so but it also limits the amount that can be spent for the people as opposed to the capital.
Yes, exactly,
And-
15%.
It's what?
15%.
15 for the people.
Yes.
What's the logic behind that?
Well, originally, the program started as urban renewal, which is very negative now, and that was a construction project, which was called urban removal, because so many buildings were torn down and not rebuilt. So they said, 50 years ago, we're changing the program, now we're going to call it community development, involve the community, do things that the community wants. But the whole focus, and my colleagues in other communities do this, really focus on making improvements to buildings, whether it's building housing, building downtowns. In Glen Cove, they've used the money at the waterfront and in the downtown. In North Hempstead, they've used it in Newcastle. In Patchogue, they've used it in their downtown. So it's brick and mortar kinds of projects as well as things that impact and improve city buildings. That's why we can do things at the firehouse here, or we could do things at the MLK Center. But the idea is that you're improving the downtown to create jobs and to make people's lives better. But not direct service, they won't allow us to spend more money on that.
But if somebody's house needs work, I think we only spend like $1,000 a year on the improvement of people's houses.
Yeah, that's called
No.
residential rehab, and
Right.
we've done very few because it's done by the county and it costs a lot of money per house. Because when they go in, it's a great program. The problem is we get so little money really at this point. We used to get double the amount we get now. And that to spend a lot on homes, which I'm sure people needed a lot, but it limits other things we can do. So it comes to about $13,000 per home. And they do things like boilers, roofs,
But
windows.
from what I've seen, we've only spent like $1,000 each year.
No,
We did
no,
one house
no.
recently, and it was about $13,000. In the past, they did a few, and in the current budget, it's a $1,000 placeholder in case the city wants to go in and do one house or a couple of homes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the public? Ms. Adamo?
Karen Adamo, 74 Forester Street. Good evening. I meant to say, Rich, we will miss you and congratulations. It's been, the little bit we've worked together has been good. And also, happy birthday, Karen. Okay, I am speaking for the Long Beach Historical Society. I'm the current president and have been for the last 6 years. When we first purchased the museum house in 1997, we were eligible for community development funds, and we were able to get them, I believe, 3 years in a row, and we did work on the building. We had to replace the whole front facade and do repairs in the front of the building. But now I understand the non-for-profits are not eligible for community development funds, which I find very difficult to understand. And you just mentioned 15% can go for non-for-profits if they help seniors and children.
Use services, yes.
Well, we just we can document the last 2 years, we've had all the fourth graders in to educate them about Long Beach history, and they have Long Beach history in their fourth grade curriculum. And half of our membership is seniors, if not more, if you're starting at the year 60. So we are servicing seniors and children in the Long Beach Historical Society. So I'm wondering what we can do to request community development funds. Would we have to request them for a specific program or a specific work, or would we not be allowed at all? That's my question. Or do I have to go to the county? I don't think this is fair of the county to limit it to the non-for-profits. We have lots of arts, community events going on, and these things cost money. And, you know, we don't want to keep asking for money. Obviously, the museum house is in dire straits, as you know. But we don't want to keep asking for money for every little event. It would be nice to have some community development funds to lean on.
Karen, I have to.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Happy to do so. So Karen raises a good point. The location of the Historical Society is not in the current eligible area, which is, as I said, from Park Avenue going north. At one time, it might have been. I can also talk to the county. I'll call the county on it to see if they have any suggestions. In terms,
We're not to interrupt, sorry.
Yeah.
We're not a homeowner.
right,
It's
right,
not a
right,
home.
right. So in terms of services, with, say, the example you gave, which is excellent, of the fourth graders, the money for services have to go to a population or a group where 51% at a minimum are low and moderate income. So if you brought in some young people, for example, or seniors might be more apt to, where they could document that they had a lower income, then we could help pay for it. The problem I have found is a lot of seniors have a lot of pride and don't want to share their financial information. That's why a lot of times it's easier to go by where they live. So that's one issue there, but I will check with the county. The other thing is, and we briefly talked, Karen, because I do other grants, and I've talked with Jeannie Brown, who's so active, and other people, and I'm so delighted that you now have a grants committee that Jeannie and you told me about, because what I said, and I've talked to Jim Kirkland about this too, what we need to do is work on, and I can't do it unfortunately because the city doesn't do that, but to advise you to apply this coming summer to the New York State Parks and Recreation, because they have historic preservation money for bricks and mortar. And you do such a great job, and I know you have such respect and support from other foundations. And whatever money you raise, and you do great, I know it's limited with COVID, but whatever you raise, if you apply to the state and you say we have X amount of money, you can apply for the match, so it takes your money twice as long. So I offered to read the application when they want to put it together. We did very well with the money for Pacific Playground in the last round. So it's coming up in June or July. I said, Jeannie, the link, she passed it on, and we would be happy to
Patty?
support you. Yes.
Karen, you'll be in touch with Patty?
Yes,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I'm taking too much time. But it's for anyone else too. It's, you know, if anyone needs help, we're here to help them.
Jumped on your shit.
Would you get bored with the conversation?
No, I got a bus.
All right, any other comments from Mr. Hodge?
Good evening.
Very snazzy, James, very snazzy.
Thank you. I knew I would see you tonight, Roy.
Nice haircut, too.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Miss McInnes. And also, let me just take 10 seconds, please, of my time. You can keep the time going.
This is on the agenda.
Thank you. That is in honor of Tina Postoli's mother. And I send my prayers and condolences to her and her family, as she's a great daughter who took care of her mother to the end. And so we send our prayers to her. I just want to say, I heard the comments, and I know Councilwoman Tristan, you kind of felt like they were talking a little bit long, but it's good that Karen got up and was asking the question. It's good, Councilman Lester, that you were asking the questions, because sometimes we've been talking about this community development funds for many, many years. I've been coming up speaking about community development funds since the 90s, since Paul Goodman and Mike Cruz and Gene Ziegler and so many other community development directors have been over it. And a lot of times money kind of goes to different things that it don't qualify for. As you heard that our director was saying that we was trying to get monies to go to the boardwalk, but it didn't really qualify. And so if the majority of the monies are for low income, that's what it's for. And it's good that you ask all of these detailed questions, Roy, because it is for a specific purpose. And over the years, sometimes those hundreds of thousands of dollars kind of shifted. We made it work, but it didn't go to a lot of times. You don't have to listen to me. Look over your records, and I think you probably would disagree with some of the places where the money went. I'm happy that money is going to the fire department because they're in the border, and I'm always going to support the fire department for equipment. I always say as they run in, we run out. So I would love for money to go to areas like the parks that's in the areas, the Martin Luther King Center, and so many other areas. I think there should be meetings before a hearing, and you get 3 minutes to talk about community development. Where are all of the groups in Long Beach that may qualify for this money? If we really care about all of the organizations and people that would qualify for that great money and those hundreds of thousands of dollars, we would have a meeting and not just a 3-minute presentation to be kind of told, Karen, you talk about that later, because the Historical Society is a very important organization in our city. And so Thomas Kelly, the late Thomas Kelly, he had a great meeting when he used to talk about community development, and he used to have all of the organizations, Project Challenge, who I used to work with, John White. So please try to do what you can to utilize that money to where it's supposed to go for. Thank you, President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, James. All right, any other comments? Ms. Lake?
Crystal Lake, good evening, everyone. Happy birthday. The area that is eligible for the CDBG funds is Census Tract 4165. North Park. What had happened previously, since the census data didn't update in a timely manner, all of the garden apartments that were along Broadway were still indicated in the census data as compared to the actual dwellings that existed for the more wealthy or affluent individuals. So that's why some of the funds were utilized over there. However, I think it's important that the funds especially target our youth, especially in the summertime. There must be some type of activities, agendas that can be implemented to assist our children, to encourage our youth, because there's really nothing for them to do. Many individuals, male and female, they like lacrosse, they like baseball. There's many different sports. My grandson used to travel to Jersey to play lacrosse, along with his peers in high school. So having said that, Sherman Brown Park, it's a phenomenal area that we can do so much with, not only to engage our youth, but we can also engage the adults as well, especially seniors, to have a healthier lifestyle. Secondly, a bathroom. Everyone has seen the list from 2011 that I emailed of my request. A bathroom was promised for Leroy Conyers Park. And what other amenities that can be incorporated would be greatly appreciated as well. Home funds, land acquisition funds should also be requested, which I am not aware of that occurring recently. I could be wrong, but that was done over 10, 15 years ago. So that's something that should be done now. Also, energy efficiency with the $1,000 or couple of thousands of dollars. Okay, homes that meet the criteria should be eligible for some type of, whether it's faucets, whatever the case may be. But there's so much that can be incorporated and utilized as a whole. Yes, we are aware that the funds are used for the masses, which is fine because we all partake in the services at one point in time or another. But it's things such as the senior center, Channel Park Homes, okay, Pinetown houses. That's the crust of obtaining the funding.
Right. So it sounds like, well, I don't know if Patty's been writing all these down, but it sounds like you two should probably have a phone call
Okay.
and give her your wish list so we could.
You know, but please, I think we really need to work together to engage our youth,
Okay.
all of our youth, within the city of Long Beach as a whole. There can be tournaments, there educational components as well. So please, and I thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Thank you.
you. All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing.
Our next public hearing is for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding special events, offenses miscellaneous, and parks and recreation.
All right, who's talking about this one?
All right, good evening, everyone. So this ordinance is essentially a long time in the making. Multiple department heads have come together over the course of years to kind of give feedback on how special events have occurred. And like the intent of the legislation infers, is to regulate special events to kind of get a hold on them. And most importantly, to basically recoup and make sure that the city doesn't go belly up every time we have a special event, you know, for resources expended. So this is essentially a comprehensive code that it's a permit process for special events. I mean, I don't want to go section by section and line by line, but the goal of it is to make sure that the city at least breaks even on these events, so that way we're not incurring, you know, overtime and just conducting events on the taxpayer's dime.
Okay, so we'll open the hearing, and any comments from the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Rich, the application fee under, I guess it's under, well, B, well, section 313B, actually D, I'm sorry. So for processing, there's a fee of $100, and it doesn't guarantee a final permit. Okay, non-refundable. But then if you want to use alcohol, there's a fee of $500. And that's basically up to, well, according to this, up to the city clerk. I'm sure the city clerk has help in determining whether to give that application. But that is a non-refundable fee also. I don't quite understand, $500, you know, where you might not get a permit. It seems to me there should be metrics where we should be able to determine whether a permit should be issued or not. So people don't go in there and just hand over money blindly and without having criteria. And there are no criteria established for that, and I guess that's because every event is different. But it doesn't seem fair to tell somebody you have to pay $500 and we're not even telling you what we require. And, you know, we may or we may not give you this permit. Am I wrong on this? Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, so both application fees are processing fees. You're right, it doesn't guarantee that you get the permit. I think Acting City Manager Walsh can comment more on the process because we've discussed it at length, but essentially it's not that you file this application and you pay the fee and it falls into a vacuum. You're essentially coordinating with every single department head that would be involved with your event from the first minute you announce that you want to have this event. So if you have a substantial gathering at the beach, you have, you know, the Parks Commissioner, you have the police department, you have fire, you have sanitation, all kind of at the table, going through with what that event holder would need to process it. Yes, these fees are upfront and non-refundable, but it's not like it just gets dumped and there's no criteria for considering the application for the special event.
Well, what is the criteria?
The criteria is dependent on the event. It's not necessarily specific. There's an evaluation that's done on every single event to determine, one, whether or not the city can accommodate the request, and then you have all your public safety concerns. If somebody came down there and said they wanted to hold an event on the beach and it was going to be 175,000 people showing up, we'd probably say no because we can't handle that event. And the evaluation of going into whether or not we can hold that event is something that starts up front. The city clerk is pretty upfront with people. He tells them when they walk in, your permit fee does not guarantee you get an event. And he, in his own judgment, sometimes tells people when they walk in whether or not they have a good chance of getting their event from his experience. And he'll call us up on the phone. I've received, I can't tell you how many phone calls I've gotten on events saying this is what's being considered. Do we think this is something that we could pull off before they even pay their fees? So it's an evaluative process that changes with each event depending upon the actual nature of the event.
So there's no criteria. I know there's a criteria for a certain number of people. I think, I forgot where it was, 200 people or something like that. I forgot which.
You're talking to be considered an event as written in the code?
I'm sorry, what, Ron?
To be considered an event, a special event as written in here, or?
Yeah, I think it was written in here.
I think it's 100, and I don't.
It just seems that there should be a criteria before somebody is taken, you know, they pay their $500. They should know whether they have a chance. And it just is a lot of money to be asking people for something that they don't even know what the criteria is. The other thing, too, is that after the event, there's a final accounting. So if there's, and basically, I know when I was asked, I was told, well, if there's an emergency, it's going to cost extra money. If something happens or we have to clear the beach or something like that. So people could walk in here, have an event, let's say Michelle O'Neill, and something happens, somebody gets hurt or something like that, and they get hit with a much heavier fee. Is that correct?
Works actually in both directions. So if Michelle O'Neill was having their event and a monsoon decided to come through and they had to cancel their events, they wouldn't pay because we didn't have to put the people on the beach. And we didn't have to have the cleanup services, and we didn't have to have the police officers. But if something happened where there was an event and it required 5 times the amount because the event turned out to be 5 times larger than they expected it to be, and we had to call in additional resources to police the event, ensure for public safety, ensure for the sanitation, then that cost would be passed on to the actual event holder.
Do these events have a limited number of people, or is it open to anybody who shows up?
Depends on the event.
It what?
It depends on the event.
So you have events with unlimited number of people?
Well, they have an estimate, but if they're not selling necessarily tickets to it, yeah. Like, we didn't know how many people were going to show up to the Fall Festival out front. We had no idea. They were hoping for a lot more than they got. But if a lot more than they expected showed up, then that would be something they would have to deal with. You're dealing with the unpredictable nature of people and of society to decide whether or not they come to an event.
I understand that, but you're also talking about businesses that, you know, they plan to spend $1,000 and they're hit with a $50,000 bill, you know. If there was an emergency with a lot of overtime and stuff like that.
So then the converse of that is that you would like to pass that cost on to the taxpayers? Because that's not what what we're actually trying to do here is to ensure that the taxpayers of Long Beach are not paying for the cost of events that people are using to raise money for themselves and actually recur the cost from the person who actually holds the event, recoup the cost, I'm sorry, from the person who actually holds the event and not pass it on to the people in the city on their tax bills. That's the point of it.
But it works works both ways. There should be some sort of criteria.
There is a criteria in there, in that they get an estimate of what it's actually going to be, and what we think in good faith is going to be a reasonable amount of fee that's going to be associated with it, based upon the resources that we think we're going to need to actually police, public safety, fire, and sanitize the event. That is given to them in good faith, and rarely does it go a lot above or below where we are. At least that has not been the case. We've given people estimates on these things in the past. We've come to agreements with them. Now we're codifying it in our code so that it's,
I have no problem with codifying an agreement. I have a problem when the agreement is open-ended. But, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any comments from the public or questions? Ms. Adamo?
Did you have something? Oh, yeah.
Before you start our time, Dave.
Karen Adamo, 74 Forester, and I'm speaking as the co-president of the Historical Society once again. And first of all, I want to thank John McNally and Joe Brand for meeting with me last week to discuss actually a boardwalk fair. So my first question is, why won't the city have a boardwalk fair when we all know that the city fairs in July have made the city a lot of money? That would be my first question. And then, of course, it follows, why can't the non-for-profits or the chamber have a boardwalk fair? So we had some explanations to that and some answers, but I really want to know, if it makes the city money, why aren't you having a fair on the boardwalk?
Karen, can I ask you, what were the answers you got?
That it wasn't conducive for the help that was needed for the boardwalk, that they can't take the cars up on the boardwalk anymore, and we have the construction on, at the super block. And I answered that people would very happily hand truck their items and their tents and whatever up to the boardwalk if we went on, say, Laurelton Boulevard, where there's a big lot. But I understand we have to get permission to use the lot. Also, Joe brought to my attention that it would take them quite a while to set up. So I said that we could start earlier in the morning. I felt that we wouldn't need as many specials because there weren't going to be cars on the boardwalk. But again, I have discussed some other alternatives with them. But I'm just curious why the city can't overcome these issues for their own show, because I know the ability to make a lot of money, and that would help the city. That's the first thing. The second thing is, yes, about this estimated costs and paying for the costs before you have the event. What if the fundraiser proponent, the group having the fundraiser, has no money to pay you in the beginning, and that's why they're having the fundraiser? Will there be some alternative arrangements to be worked out? Maybe they only have half of the money. Let's say it's $20,000 that you need to run a large event. What if they don't have $20,000 to give you in advance? But they're, almost certain to make that plus more at the event. That's the way we've done it in the past, and I don't think you've been shortchanged, as far as I know.
I actually just want to comment. I haven't ever seen a report on what money is actually even made for the city by having these events. I haven't. A lot of money is. My job is to verify that, and I have no verification that the city makes a lot of money.
Previous to the to COVID?
I have no reports on that.
I have no knowledge myself of the city making money on any of their fairs. I think the fall festival sometimes breaks even.
Well, the fall festival is a totally different thing.
Well,
except that you have vendors. But you incur a lot of costs for the children and the other things that you have going on there. Time, yeah, I know it's time. So maybe I can speak to
Joe.
someone about that?
Joe Brand, do you have any knowledge of any of these events that have actually made money?
I can get it for you. Based on what we have from,
Joe, can you just come to the microphone, please?
From the number of vendors that we have, and then obviously I'll have to subtract what we put out in personnel, because for the biggest shows that we used to hold in July up on the boardwalk, we would have hundreds of vendors up there, paying whatever the fee was at the time. But obviously, the more vendors you have, the more personnel you're going to have to hire to carry the event off. So.
Mr. Lester brings up a lot of, he brings up points such as data, right? And so the thing is that we have not had consistent data or interpretation of data for decades now on special events. So I commend the staff for putting together to codify what a special event is, and then basically to draw a baseline of exactly what makes an event break even. Because if you had information from years ago, who knows if that is the valid information. And so that's how numbers get thrown around and misused, and how we think we make all this money from events. I am not convinced. I haven't seen anything to that effect.
You're spot on. I mean, just because you see a projected revenue in an arts and crafts line, for argument's sake, if it's $100,000, it certainly doesn't mean that the city's benefiting $100,000 from an arts and crafts festival up on the boardwalk.
Right. So we're operating at an elevated level of analysis, professionalism, and standards.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we
so-
do a P&L for a 10-mile race. I mean,
Exactly, so-
it's completely different than what it was.
Right. So the past is the past. Moving forward, this is how we do business. Professional, with data.
I have, Karen, your point about a nonprofit or an event holder who might not have the money up front, right? So that doesn't necessarily disqualify you. This ordinance doesn't preclude you or that person or that entity from holding the event. What it does do is put them on the hook if they can't pay it, right? So the idea is saying, we're going to have a great event, this is what we need, these are the resources, and it turns out it's a flop and you can't make do, it becomes essentially money owed to the city that the city will have to consider recouping however it can, right? But it doesn't preclude them from holding the event, so it's not like those startups, those not-for-profits that are trying to get something done don't have an entree into the situation.
But Rich,
Because there are, Karen, I'm sorry. There are a number of nonprofits that have a very limited bank account that will still continue to be able to utilize the city. I mean, we're not cruel people. We're still going to want to ride our bike. We want to come to your fair. We want to buy your beach towel, which is the softest beach towel ever made. I suggest you go get one.
But
Thank you.
Rich, one of the things, though, that this new ordinance does say, the city shall require payment of a reasonable estimate in cost in full before a permit will be issued. That sounds to me like, yes, they do have to pay it.
That sounds reasonable.
Well, I'm not saying it's not reasonable, but Rich said it's a way, what Karen was talking about, not having, not-for-profits that just don't have the money and they're going to make the money. Is there a way to do it? But according to this new ordinance, it doesn't seem there is a way to do that.
There is. It's determining the reasonable amount.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Ms. Vining?
Judy Vining, Long Beach. I'm really, the part that I'm looking at is the alcohol permit, and just in terms of putting it all on the discretion of Mr. Fraser, it doesn't seem fair, even. Are there going to be some criteria set up for what is...
He issues the permit.
Well,
the
the
city.
way it reads here.
He issues the permit.
Mhm.
He's responsible for issuing the permit. He engages all of the city agencies. He says, I have a request for X permit. Then he engages the police department, the fire department, the rec center, the sanitation department, all the departments that might be necessary to carry it off. Then we will recommend to him whether or not we can handle it. Then he issues the permit.
Okay.
He doesn't do that in a vacuum.
Understood, but the way it reads the city clerk shall determine whether the character, blah, blah, blah.
Right, we inform his determination. He's not
Okay.
expert in
Okay,
all
I'm
things.
just
And that's the way
quoting
it
what
is
you've
now,
got here.
so-
Huh?
And that's the way it's.
But my
Yeah.
question is.
But that's now, too.
Yeah, that's
Like-
the way it
Okay.
is written now as well.
My question really is sort of tied into Roy's about forewarning people what they're paying for. Are there going to be criteria that could be on the city website or whatever about what makes it safe and consonant and all that with the neighborhood? What are the criteria? What are the guidelines? I guess guidelines would be a better way so that you have flexibility.
Within the code itself.
What's that?
The criteria, there cannot, theoretically, there cannot be criteria for every single
No,
event.
understood.
Because it's infinity of all the different types of
I
events
guess
you
I'm
can
really
have.
saying guidelines for something like this because it can explode.
So it's written in such a way that the public safety, health, and welfare need to be considered, and that consideration is specific to each event. So the fire department wouldn't say that you can't do this because something outside of their purview. The police department wouldn't say, it's, okay, we think that if you have a crowd of this size, we're going to need this many police officers, and we're going to need to have some sort of control and access for the police department in case there's an emergency. The fire department would look at, okay, for ambulance purposes, what do they need in the way
No,
of
I get
having
it.
getting,
I get it.
so they're not really specific, they're public safety consideration, public safety and health considerations.
Okay.
So that's
I
kind of
I
left
was
up to
just
those departments to
responding the
determine
way
for each event.
It was written, that's all.
Yeah.
And I'd be more remiss than I want to be if not wishing Mr. Barrios the best. He has been a really good partner for Long Beach Aware for a lot of years. He's actually literally sat at meetings when he probably would have rather been home with his kids. And just like, happy birthday, Karen. I'm sure you're other places you'd rather celebrate your birthday. But, Rich, you will be sorely missed, not only at our meetings, but your advice and your support has been invaluable. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more comments from the public? Mr. Kirkland?
Good evening. Jim Kirkland, Long Beach, New York. In listening to all of the conversations that have been going on, it would seem like it's almost near impossible to predict what the outcome is going to be of any kind of a large public event. So to try and staff it properly and provide all of the essential security measures that might be needed, the only thing you could really go by is by, investigating what other communities have done. Every year they have the San Gennaro Feast. Every year they have a San Gennaro Feast, in fact, in Island Park. There's the AOH, which parades itself during the summertime with large parades. We have the Electric Light Parade, which goes on in December. There's so many events that take place. Sometimes they're just ad hoc, but, to be prepared for everything would be almost impossible unless you have far enough in advance. But I think that none of these communities that we're surrounded by or other or other states in the nation would not be doing this if it wasn't worth their while. Sometimes it's just for good public publicity. The town of Oyster Bay has an entire weekend devoted to an Oyster Fest. And while it may be an expense, it gets so much publicity that it's become known throughout the state and probably throughout other states as well. So the good is it sometimes it makes the people happy. It makes the area more welcoming to other people who are looking for a place to come and visit. And at the same time, it gives the operating people an opportunity to learn what they really will need and how to go about estimating it. And I'm sure you could just reach out to some other communities and say, how do you prepare for it? And so to pass something tonight that's going to put everything in black and white seems a little premature unless you've really investigated this to a greater extent than what you already have. Like Karen pointed out, there's been no real refined records in terms of financial profit or loss in the past, but it's a beginning, and just the mere fact that people are doing it, they're not going to do it if they're always losing money.
So just to add a little point of clarity to what you said, we have the expertise to estimate what we need to do. There's no question about it. The expertise resides within this city to estimate the costs of what events are coming. We have the expertise in the fire department, the police department, sanitation, every one of our departments. We call them, we say, this is the type of event, this is where it's going to be. What do you think? And then we walk through the finer details. We find out what type of events they're going to have, how much this, how much that, whatever it might be. You fill in the widgets that they're going to have at the event, right? So the expertise is here to make those estimates. So I don't need to call Nassau County to find out what Nassau County's doing. I can tell you, though, I was part of the planning committee for one of the largest golf events that ever took place here in Nassau County, and I was one of the people who was on the whole management of that, if you will. And there was a very large amount of money that the PGA gave to the county of Nassau to remunerate for the costs of the police officers, not only us, but the state police in Suffolk County, which also helped us actually police it. It's done with most events in most places. So it's not a question of whether or not we have the expertise to come up with the estimate. It's a question of whether or not you can write down the rubric exactly how it's going to be applied as to every single event. You cannot predict what an event is going to have until the event is presented to you, and then you walk through what they have and say, okay, here's a perfect example. They want to do there's a new one coming up with the bands that are going to be played down on the what's it called? Can't think of it. The Porch March or whatever it is, where they're going to be playing music.
They're going to play music. I'm sorry.
They're
going to be the Kiwanis Club is going to have something where they have people are going to be playing on their porches.
Right.
And they're going to be, that's their fundraiser.
Right. So their fundraiser is going to be, these people have these little bands or music or whatever on their porches, and people are going to walk by and spend 10 or 15 minutes in front of each house and then go to the next, right? So we in the police department looked at it. We did call out to other places because you don't have a lot of those events here, and Rockville Center does have some. Glen Cove has had a few, and they said they really don't police it. It usually doesn't need policing. So we looked at it, we considered it. We don't think that we need to police it. You know what their cost is? Their permit fee. That's it. Because we don't feel that it's necessary to put a police officer at it. Now, if 100,000 people show up and the entire West Home area of Long Beach gets closed down because of these people, different situation. The likelihood of that is too slim and none, right? But if it were to happen, should the people of Long Beach be saddled with the tax impact on their tax bills for having to call in 15 police officers on overtime? If you're going to hold an event, you should be responsible for the things that happen for your event. That's all this says. We don't think that that's necessary for that porch crawl. I think it was called a porch crawl, right?
No, no crawl.
Porch
no
what?
crawl.
Porch
no
Fest,
crawl.
whatever it's called. I
Crawl
don't
means
want to give it the wrong name, and then I'm going to get yelled at. Tomorrow morning, my email's going to be filled with all these people mad at me for calling it a porch crawl. So it's not a porch crawl, sorry. But nonetheless, it's our best estimate of that, and looking into it, is there's no fee for it. Just pay your $100 for your permit, and you're good to go. Right, and the hold harmless for the city.
Well, the only variable that you have no control over is how many people are going to show up for anything, any kind of event that you hold on. Right. Is it possible for the event holders to insure themselves? I don't know. I mean,
they do have to have additional insurance.
So they got to bond themselves.
The most difficult
somehow.
one for us is the polar bear plunge, because once you hit the water, there's no insurance that covers anybody.
Right.
So, but nonetheless, the Polar Bear organization and Make-A-Wish, they remunerate the city for the resources that we put down on the beach.
Okay. Well, and bonding, I guess, would only apply in case of an unexpected emergency or a disaster that should happen, which you couldn't prepare for that either. Right. But that wouldn't affect the people having the event.
It's also written here, if it's not directly attributable to the event. Like if the event didn't cause the problem, the event doesn't get paid for, you know what I mean, charged for the
Right.
problem.
Okay. All right, well, just my...
Thank you very much.
All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close that hearing.
Okay, our last public hearing is for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park.
All right, and we'll open that hearing, and who are we hearing from on this? You? Like me.
Good evening again. This has been presented before to the council and to the public at some point, but this is essentially an ordinance to amend the tables and chairs concept on the boardwalk. So just an overview of this ordinance, what it has is it has a two-phase process. Phase one gets us through the year of 2025. We've updated Section A in this code. Section A references restaurants, luncheonettes, stands, or other businesses directly adjacent to the north boundary of the boardwalk, right? So once upon a time, there used to be property-owning individuals who had windows that served food, and that's what this opening charge was for. We've updated it to kind of reflect, I guess, the amount of business that should be coming in should these people decide to open those businesses again. Whether or not that's going to happen remains to be seen. The other part of it is the tables and chairs on the boardwalk. So there's a general prohibition in the code on tables and chairs on the boardwalk. This amends it to permit said tables and chairs with a written agreement or permission from the city. So additionally, under this, notwithstanding any permission, between November 15th and March 15th, all tables and chairs have to be removed from the boardwalk, essentially the off-season for all these boardwalk businesses. Phase two of this is that after December 31st of 25, there will be a new section 18-19B, whereby the code will be amended to have essentially a mirroring of what the building department currently does with the off-street tables and chairs throughout the city. So in the West End, over by Lost and Found, different businesses, there are tables and chairs out there for outdoor dining. This is going to mirror that. With respect to the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation promulgating rules, it's the corresponding mirror of the Building Commissioner promulgating these rules. The City Council has to authorize and approve these rules. The Commissioner of Parks and Recreation doesn't operate in a vacuum, so he and I have been in regular contact on this rubric, these rules. So well in advance of December 31st of 2025, we will have those presented to the council. It's already on the pile to my successor.
All right, any questions from, well, I just look to my right.
Well, I have a
Okay, let's let Karen go first.
Sure. I just want to, thank the Corporation Counsel's office for coming up with this resolution, which basically catches up the code with something that was already happening that was not in the code and should have not been happening. So I thought this was a really innovative compromise in order to get things done so that, again, we are acting in a professional manner that is consistent with our code.
Okay.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First of all, any restaurant, luncheonette, stand, or other business that's in Section A, adjacent to the north boundary, how is that different than the leases that are currently there?
So this references privately owned property, basically. So non-city owned property. We lease concessions, or those concession businesses. So those wouldn't be applicable to this opening because they're essentially already built with an opening on there. So they lease that space.
It doesn't reflect, it says any restaurant, it doesn't reflect private at all. That's number one. Number two, you have, let's say, a place like Alegria. They have a door that goes out into the boardwalk. That's an opening. And yet it says you can't let people, use that opening to get on the boardwalk. How does that, why?
Where are you
It says, the opening shall be used exclusively for the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages to persons using the park and shall not at any time be used as an entrance to or exit from the park or the waters adjacent thereto. Now, the boardwalk is the park. So if you're going from the building to the boardwalk, you're violating this.
Well, so there were other concessions or food vendors. So the history of this is that there used to be vendors on either side of the boardwalk historically.
I'm just talking about how it's written right now.
Right, I understand your point. But the intent behind it originally was for those openings, not for an allegria, so to speak. It was for those ice cream windows, those small little vendors that were scattered across the boardwalk.
Also, Rich, it also says that the opening is used exclusively for the sale of food and/or non-alcoholic beverages. Those openings are not used exclusively for the sale of food, and
Ron, it
that's a
says the
door.
opening shall be used.
Shall be used exclusively
So-
for, they're not using it for that.
But that's the existing code.
Right, that's already,
Yeah,
that's
That's
been there
already
forever.
here. Yeah, that's
Right.
what the code is.
This is what the
I
code is.
understand that,
I'm
but
sorry.
It doesn't seem to make sense. The opening shall be used. It's not defining the opening, it's saying how the opening should be used. Then on the second part, now you're talking about persons, firms, or corporations operating such businesses. I'm not sure what such businesses is referring to. Shall not have a place tables basically without the express written permission of the city, nor without city council approval. In the case that the person, firm, or corporation has a valid license or lease or license with city property on or adjacent to the boundaries, such permission shall be set forth in the respective lease or license. Now I don't see how this solves anything, given that those permissions were not, in this particular case, what this is trying to solve, was not in the lease or license.
It was in a separate agreement.
There is a separate agreement, right, and it's an amendment to the lease.
No, there was
If you,
no
if
lease.
you'd like to discuss, I guess, the legal ramifications of it, you can make a motion to go in executive session, because it could involve litigation, right? But the idea being that the purpose of subsection B distinguishes between private property owners who want to put a table or chair, and those private property owners have to have property on the boardwalk. It's not like I can have property, on Penn Street and say, I want to put a table and chair up. You need property that directly abuts the boardwalk, and that treats you one way for a lease or a license. If you're a concessionaire who leases city property, you would also need permission in that lease or license to put the table or chair out.
Right, I understand that.
The other thing you asked, Roy, too, is you didn't understand what such business was. You're under section 18-19, food and beverage sales and service. So such business is under food and beverage sales and service.
Which is exactly what's in A2.
Correct, but you said
So
operating, you said you don't understand what such business is. It's a food and beverage sale or service.
I don't understand the difference between A and B as far as the type of business you have.
Sure.
Restaurants, luncheonettes, stand, and other businesses adjacent. And this
Right.
one operating such business.
The distinction is what it offers, right? Section A offers an opening. Section B offers a table or a chair.
So it's just the opening? That's the only difference between the two?
That's the distinction between those two provisions.
So
Based on what I'm hearing from you,
So
yes.
if you look at the restaurant, the stands that we have right now, the concessions, they all have openings.
That's not how I interpret subsection A.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? And
Someone's
we'll
hand's in the
start
back.
with Ms. Hessian. Is that Mr. Paganini behind you, James? Yes. Okay, so I know.
Eileen Hessian, Long Beach. I have to agree with Roy in that the language in a legal document matters. And what I noticed, I think this came up at one of the other meetings when we were talking about tables and chairs on the boardwalk. In section A, where it says $500, about 6 lines down or so, it says per season. But we don't know what a season is. I think it really has to be defined. This came up once before here. And it says it begins in July, but really the season of summer doesn't begin in July, it begins in June. Does this mean the winter season? Anyway, think about it.
Well,
Thank you.
it says payable on or before the 1st of July.
Yeah, but it's $500 per season.
Right, payable on or before the 1st of July.
When does it end?
Ms. Hessian.
How long is
I think
the season?
I can help answer. So
Thank you.
in the rest of Chapter 18, you have the Ocean Beach Park rules, And so the Ocean Beach Park season is set in the code, and it's basically determined every year by the council. So you get a council resolution at some point in the next couple of months that says the official season of the Ocean Beach Park will be this date to this date. And that fluctuates, I guess, depending on what the cycle of that year is, right?
It's usually Memorial Day, and that's not July 1st.
Right, usually it is, you're right.
I just don't think that it's clear. I think
Well, that's when the
this
money's
came up
due.
at the last city council meeting, or maybe it was two. It was the wording that somebody brought up, and it had to do with season. Same exact thing I'm bringing up now. If it's in the document and it's a legal document, I think you have to say, you have to define it exactly, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Thank you. Did you want to say something, Liz?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Paganini?
Hello, everybody. You know who I am?
Hi, Ron.
Do I have to mention my name?
Yes, sir.
You do for the record.
All right, Ron Paganini, Long Beach. I just want to clarify one thing. So the Bradish case, when he was suing the city, is off with your new change in the charter, correct?
He wasn't suing us.
No, but he was going after you. You were going after him. Then he was going after you with a lawyer. I mean, the possible lawsuit. Let's put it that way.
We can't talk about what
No, what I'm trying to say is that in the new charter change, it gives a date when you have to take the tables off,
Yes.
right? In his contract, there was no date. So basically, he can operate at will.
No, there was a date.
No, there was no date in the original charter for him. The date was when the season ends for the individual who basically paid for his lease. And it said, when that person season ends, he has to take the tables off. That's what it said.
I'm sorry, under section 3.4, there's season-based, you know, if he's opening, if he's there, it has to be,
Are we allowed to talk about a specific agreement or negotiation thereof? Are we supposed to be talking about?
you gotta be kidding, this is on the.
No, we're
No, no,
talking
I'm,
about specific
I'm
people
asking,
corporate
I'm asking, not because
Oh, yeah.
my job is also to protect the city, and I'm not sure we should be talking about this, a specific agreement for a specific individual.
So I think Mr. Paganini wants to talk about it, so you can finish what you were saying. I'll try to address what you were saying, and we can go from there if you'd like.
Well, you sent a letter to Mr. Bradish to take the tables and chairs off, correct? That was the letter, to take the tables and chairs off. Because of the charter, how it states in the charter. But there's no, in his lease, which I read, I don't know what you read, in his lease it states that there is no dates. It mentions seasons in the charter. That's all it mentions, a season for that individual that he paid for. There's no dates in the charter, the original charter, of when to take the tables off. It says when the person who buys a lease to sell beverages, he must take the tables and chairs off when his season ends. So when does his season end? He can keep it open all winter. That's what I'm stating. So what you did was basically kick this can down the road where he basically could stay there. His case is done, and in 2025, when he does a new lease or whatever, then he has to abide by the new charter. That's what I think.
I got you. So, Mr. Paganini, just so, I don't know where you were reading from, but this new version of this code has November 15th through March 15th where the tables and chairs have to be removed, right?
Yes.
So you have that.
Yeah, but it's not in his contract that you gave him.
We can't talk.
I have a copy of his contract. There is no dates in his contract. So I'm just saying,
I know what you're saying. I don't know where you're
Basically,
reading from.
he can do what he wants until those dates are in effect. We're in a new lease.
Gotcha. You're advocating. Got it.
Ron, if you just, when you look at the contract, if you just look at page 7 under the background information, where it says, in addition, all concessions will be allowed to operate from May 1st to September 30th, the prime season, during the hours of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll close that hearing.
Okay. On to the regular calendar. And once again, items 8 and 9 have been removed from the calendar. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the County of Nassau for the purpose of undertaking a community development program under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended for inclusion with the city's community development program for the 23-24 49th year. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 2 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding special events, offenses, miscellaneous, and parks and recreation. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 3 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 4 has already been voted on. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing budget amendments to the water fund budget for the 22-23 fiscal year.
So, want me to tell you about it real quick? It's pretty self-explanatory, written in the resolution. We provided water because there was an emergency in the town of Hempstead from July 1st to July 23rd. This is basically the payback for the water and associated services that we provided to the town of Hempstead.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? All right, next item.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase bunker gear for the Long Beach Fire Department under a New York State contract.
Commissioner Miller? You look very dapper tonight, Joe.
Thank you. Good evening. Joseph Miller, Fire Commissioner. The Long Beach Fire Department is in need of purchasing new and replacing outdated non-FPA compliant bunker and EMS gear for members of the department, both career and volunteer. This safety equipment is necessary to protect the members of the department that are entering fires and/or called upon to enter other types of hazardous environments. Under federal OSHA and PESH laws for fire brigades, the employer shall provide at no cost to the employee protective clothing while performing firefighter duties. Funding for this purchase is available through the 48th Community Development Building Grant for $35,883, and the remainder of the money, $21,706.20, coming from the Fire Department budget account line for fire safety equipment. The purchase falls under the state bid process, and the manufacturer is Honeywell First Responder Products, and our distributor is High Tech Fire and Safety. Both are listed on the state contract list. NFPA standards dictate that firefighter safety equipment has a 10-year lifespan from the date of manufacture. Some items being replaced by this purchase are past the recommended time of replacement by a few years, and others are damaged in need of replacement for the safety of the members. The total cost for this purchase would be $57,589.20. This is a liability issue, and our proactive approach to meeting the department and city's needs for safety is being met. The length of time needed to manufacture these sets and for us to accept delivery would be approximately 4 months. The firefighters and EMS members would be best protected by purchasing the new bunker and EMS gear.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
Joe, my understanding is there are 18 sets, correct?
Yes, 18 sets overall between the bunker and EMS gear.
And 17 are going to the volunteers and 1 to a new firefighter?
Correct.
Okay, no problem with that.
I just want to point out that I asked acting city manager if we could somehow incorporate a purchase of bunker gear within the regular fire department operating budget, so that we're not at such a deficit of having so much old equipment in disrepair?
That's what we've been doing for the past year. We
Okay.
have been updating over the last 5 years with grants and using money out of the operating budget.
Mhm.
And at this point, we've met almost all the needs of
Okay.
everyone being properly clothed.
So going forward, we'll have a normal rotation of how many we purchase in each year so that it's not a fire
Correct.
drill.
That is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the public? Mr. Hodge?
James Hodge, 95 East Fulton Street, here in this great city, from the east, the west, the north, and the south. Roy, you're doing good. I like that. You agreed with them. Thank you so
I want
much.
to hear from what streets.
Oh,
James.
from Nevada to Maple, from the bay to the ocean. I just happen to live closer to the bay. Thank you, Roy. I just want to stand in support, as I've been doing for many years, for the fine fire department. I think I love all of our departments, but two of our greatest departments that we should look to always celebrate is the fire department and the auxiliary department, which I've had the opportunity to spend several years in the auxiliary department. One reason is that they volunteer their time. They get off of work, they're coming from work to run into risk their lives to save others' lives. And if there's any equipment, anything, it's good that they qualify because they're in the area, but even if they didn't qualify for this grant, the grant committee of the city of Long Beach, and I know we have a lot of specialists in the last years, and it's good to hear the city manager, commissioner say that we have a lot of experts within the city, because we do. We have top-notch people from around the world right here in the city of Long Beach. But I say to you, if you can vote on this, so our firemen that came off of work today don't have to sit here all night after this, but please give them everything that they need. This is not just saying this today because I get up every time firemen come up or anytime it's something with auxiliaries, because again, they volunteer their time. That is truly, truly special, all of the training and all of the things they go through. So if we got to get them some fire socks, some fire draw, whatever we got to get them, let's get them every piece of material that we need. Again, let's support the fire department. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to add, when I got on the council, all I heard about was the need for bunker gear. And the first 2 years I was on the council, different administration, if I recall correctly, we bought 0 sets of bunker gear. When we took over, we made a priority to start not just the fire department, but all across the city. You see us now, we're buying software to upgrade our systems and hardware and things like that. We're trying to modernize and get the people who work for the city, who keep this city operating for us, the tools they need to do their jobs. And this is part of it. Getting these people bunker gear is, to me, it's absurd that there was questions about giving people safety gear. That's ridiculous. That people had to fight over getting safety gear. So we're going to get these people what they need. We're doing it in the next resolution too, where we're going to be talking about getting them a new ambulance because we need an ambulance. We're getting people the equipment they need to do their jobs, because that's what keeps this city humming. So with that, any other questions on this? Seeing none, on to the next item.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a new ambulance for the city's fire department under a Nassau County contract.
Long Beach Fire Department is endeavoring to standardize the apparatus purchasing schedule for much-needed vehicles. Our ambulances have been identified as needing to be replaced every 3 years or so due to wear and tear on them, due to the enormous amount of emergency alarms they respond on, 3,800 last year alone. Beginning in 2021, a joint exercise of career and volunteer members identified a new ambulance to be purchased. In 2022, the city passed a resolution to purchase this new ambulance with a Dodge chassis from PL Custom. The expected delivery date was approximately 2 years. In December of 2022, we were informed that our dealer would be unable to secure a Dodge chassis and we would need to reconsider our purchase. Please bear in mind that our current fleet of ambulances is desperate in need of replacement or servicing. We normally run 4 ambulances up and down our 2018 primary ambulance for repairs. Our backup ambulance, a 2017, has over 500,000 hours of engine time on it. Our next 2 ambulances are a 2012 and a 2003. Right away, your fire commissioners began researching all other alternatives. We inquired about Ford chassis and the possibility of using Sprinter vans for ambulances. Ford chassis were more accessible. We're still 2 years away from receiving. Sprinter vans, while not truly fitting the needs of the community, were a last resort, and they were a minimum of a year away. While doing our research, we were able to locate a 2022 Ford E450 Demers body ambulance available through a Nassau County contract from LI Proliner out in Medford, New York, for a cost of $312,284.18. This ambulance is on their lot and immediately available. It comes with the basic 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty. In addition, Demers offers a 25-year limited lifetime body structure warranty, paint and electrical services for 5 years or 180,000 miles. In the interest of public safety, I request the city authorizes purchase of the ambulance. I also request that the City Council reconsider ending the contract with PL Custom. PL Custom has been a longtime friend to the City of Long Beach, providing most of our previous ambulance purchases. They have been a family business, providing top-notch apparatus for us for years. I ask that you amend this resolution and approve the purchase for the new ambulance and also leave the PL Custom resolution from 2022 in place. By ending the agreement, we will be losing our spot in the queue of departments requesting purchases. We will still need to purchase a new ambulance by the time this ambulance does become available. No money has been expended, and no money would need to be expended until delivery. There is no cost for the city now. Delaying this will put the ambulance purchase back to 2025 or 26. It is my professional opinion to not amend this resolution, and it would be short-sighted if we did.
Okay, so we were just mumbling to each other about it. So the PL order is still in place. So this will not cancel the PL order.
Which is perfect. That will definitely benefit the
So
city.
we'll
and
still
its
be on the
residents.
list.
I'm not sure where you got the information that
Yeah.
it was canceled. So it was never canceled. This was.
My misconstruing then, when I read the thing, I thought it said in lieu of, so.
Well, in lieu of right now. So the purchase for right now is the Demers in lieu of, but we're still on the list for the PL Custom Classic, which
Okay.
would be 2 years from now.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just in case people weren't paying close attention, what this basically means is instead of waiting 2 years to get an ambulance, we're going to get one now. And we're in desperate need of one now. So we're getting it now instead of 2 years from now. I just have one question. Is the Demers equivalent or better than the PL Custom? It still does everything we need it to do?
Yes, this one will do everything we need to do. Nassau County Police has Demer ambulances, and
Okay.
they have at least 50.
I mean, I know the only difference really is gasoline versus diesel.
Right.
But other than that.
There might be some differences with the inside and the rear, but it's all minor stuff that can be easily
But
overcome.
still, stuff our people can still use it just fine.
We have top-notch guys that'll be using it every day.
Okay. Any other questions from
And women.
council?
And women.
Yes, I just wanted to point out to thank Acting City Manager Walsh for explaining the financing of how this is going to work. I thought it was very, again, innovative and really helps us get what we need sooner versus later. Unfortunately, with the way the accounting works here, the total purchase was supposed to be in the operating budget, the regular budget. Now, only $112,000 is from the regular budget, and the rest will be financed. So what's going to happen to the roughly $17,000 that's currently in your operating budget that was supposed to pay for the balance of this ambulance?
200,000 of it is going to come out of capital project money to offset some of the purchase price of the vehicle. The remaining funds in the, I guess it's,
Operating.
yeah, the operating one, the A341054509.
Uh-huh.
That money will be applied towards the overages in the fire department right now for the overtime.
Which exceed 217,000.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, thank you for all the information you bombarded us with about the ambulance. Because,
Well, we
you
did
know,
ask for
but-
backup.
But it's what we asked for, so thank you.
I learned from last year,
I think
so-
we're in a groove now on this stuff.
Absolutely.
Joe?
Yes, sir.
When you first were speaking, you said the ambulance had how many hours on it?
5,000.
Over 500,000 hours on the engine.
Right.
It's an equivalent of miles. Every hour of running is equivalent to 33 miles.
About 33,
Yeah, that's
34
miles,
miles.
but you said hours.
Right, the engine hours were equivalent to 500,000 miles.
500,000 miles?
Yes.
All right, yeah, because 500,000 hours is 57 years, if it's
Yeah,
running.
we've had it a long time.
They're Long Beach years, Roy, so every year here is like 12.
Okay. You know, I've looked at this ambulance. I'm very much in support of it. The only problem I'm having here is we're taking borrowed money when we originally had the money in the operating budget for the other ambulance. And I just, you know, I voted against that capital budget because there's so many things in it that just aren't fair, in my opinion only, to the people of the city of Long Beach. And now we had operating money. We had, I think it was 329 for the original ambulance. And this one's only 312, and we're going to use borrowed money for it, rather than the money that we had put aside for this. To me, that makes no sense.
That's not for you, Commissioner. As I explained once before, but I'll explain for the sake of the public understanding, there's $350,000 that were borrowed for ambulances or ambulance repairs already in our capital projects. In order so that we didn't have to borrow more money and to also free up money in our operating expenses, we applied $200,000 of that money to the purchase of this ambulance. The remaining money in that capital line, the $150,000 that remains, is going to be used to refurbish the ambulances that we have. We are going to identify an ambulance that needs work, and we're going to do such work so that we have ambulances in the interim, because the next ambulance that we see in our future is probably 2 years down the
Ron,
road.
I understand we need the ambulances. We had one of our ambulances hit by a car that's
Yes.
being fixed right now. We just put a new engine in that ambulance, right? Yeah, brand new
Correct.
engine. So, you know, hopefully, as soon as the back steps are done, we're going to have that back. So we'll have two almost new ambulances with this one. What I don't understand is why we had operating money, and rather than using that operating money for specifically what we voted it to be used for in the budget, which was a new ambulance, we're now taking money out of the capital to do it. Listen, that capital money, we haven't borrowed all of that money yet. We can use that when the new one, when the PL comes in, the PL custom. But to take it now doesn't make sense to me unless it's just so that we have the extra money for the overtime. Is that the purpose?
Yes.
Well, I can't support that. You know, ambulances are more important. All right, thanks. Thank you, Joe.
I would just comment that I was not pleased that we had to basically take operating funds to make the fire department whole to cover the shortages, the overages and overtime. But there's nothing I can do about that because it's contractual. So the thing is, I thought this was a really innovative way to get the ambulance as soon as possible while still trying to make our budget this year.
Karen, we had the money already set aside for it. So
But we
could
don't
get
have the
it
money
as
for
soon
the
as-
overtime.
But we don't have the money for the overtime, so this
We
was
do
a
not
way.
have the money for the overtime.
This was a way to basically cover the
In other words,
overage and
not-
overtime, which
Not borrow money for for the overtime? In other words, with shifting around the shell game, so
It's-
that in essence, we're borrowing the money.
This was the most legitimate way to deal with an impossible situation in terms of the overages of the fire department overtime.
How much are they over budget at this point? Over budget?
Over budget? I couldn't tell you exactly, but it's probably in the area of 1 million over budget right now.
So
No,
we're going to
it's
have
not-
to,
It's not over budget that much. It's probably about,
Oh, it's 900, right?
it's probably about 500 to 600 over.
so this is the balance of when we have the senior staff management team trying to balance the fact that we need new ambulances, we needed them yesterday, we have a tremendous overage in this department, and then we still need ambulances. And that's what professional government officials do, is they figure out impossible situations like this.
And I'd like to
Am I happy about it? No, but I thought this is what the team works on, to figure out how to get things done. We
I'd
need
like to thank the
ambulances.
city manager and
And you?
Nina for
And Nina,
being
mhm.
very helpful with it.
Any question?
All right. Any other questions from the public on this? That's not in your vocabulary, James.
It is. James Hodge, 95 East Fulton Street here in our great city. Just standing again in support of this. Roy, you was doing good. You was doing good. Don't mess it up. All right. But it's good you asked all those questions. You know I love you, Roy. I think I can do great work with you. So at this time, I just want to, again, stand in honor to really celebrate our fire department. Let us continue doing whatever we can, whatever ways we can, help them out. I do, because you were speaking about history, President, and I do want to take this time, as I always say, it's Black History Month, but I don't just celebrate the month because I think everybody's history is important, and 28 days ain't enough to tell our story, and everybody's history is important all throughout the year, not just a month or a week or whatever. We should tell everybody's history. They need to tell some people about that in Florida, the AP. But listen, so I just want to say Long Beach made great history. In 1978, the company elected the first African-American captain in the department by the name of Charlie Hassel. That's right, I'm giving him a round of applause. And so Charlie Hassel also had the distinction of being the first African-American in the company, but not just in Long Beach, but in pretty much Long Island. So with that history, I also want to give honor to Herman. He's been a part of the fire department for about 30 years or more. Since I was a kid, I used to see him running by my house to the fire. Wherever it was, he would be running, whether it was on a bike or running. He's here tonight. Give him a round of applause. 30-some years of dedication. And also, all of our firemen. But since we're talking about Black history, let us also give our first Assistant Chief, Hatrick Ray, a round of applause, the first African-American Assistant Chief. So again, thank you for everybody's history, but since you mentioned history, I just wanted to give you a little bit of Black history. God bless. Have a good night. Let's get that ambulance.
Any other comments from the public?
No.
All right, seeing none, on to the next item.
Okay. Items 8 and 9 have been taken off the calendar.
And just for the interest of the firefighters that are here, we're going to vote on the LoSAP. We got updates to the LoSAP list just before the meeting, so we're going to update the list and vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding motor vehicles and traffic. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held March 7th at 7 p.m. I believe we have a motion on this item.
Yes, I'd suggest just a motion to amend very non-substantively. It was literally just, it's a reformatting issue. So the proposed amendment would be to, specifically with section 15-217, the very first paragraph starting a device should start the subsection A, and it should continue thereafter through subsection H. So it's literally formatting. And then the other non-substantive change is to add before a device that is capable, add before it, for the purposes of this article, school bus photo violation monitoring system is. A school bus photo violation monitoring system is, and continue thereafter. It's literally just supposed to be a defined term, and I don't know how I missed it, but I missed it.
Do I have a
And it's
motion?
not substantive, it doesn't require renoticing. This is not changing anything about the ordinance.
Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Voting on the motion. Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 11 is approval of minutes for prior meetings, February 7th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
Just one minor, it's a typo, and so I don't think it's a, but in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th paragraph on page 1, it just says, "The acting city manager then announced the city was the recipient if the distinguished budget award." It should be of.
Okay.
Just a minor typo. So
I'll
with
make
that,
note.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Abstain.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay, on to the voting. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the County of Nassau for the purpose of undertaking a community development program under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended, and inclusion in the city's community development program for the 2023-24 49th year. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes, and thank you, Patty, for all your work.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 2 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding special events, offenses, miscellaneous, and parks and recreation. Who introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Mr. Demo brought up a lot of good points in this, and I really don't think this is ready for prime time yet, so I'm going to vote no on
No,
this.
it's just far away. No, it's on, it's just far away.
Yep. Okay. There we go. Okay. Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 3 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park. Who introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Again, I don't think this is reflecting what the rest of the charter says, or reflecting what really the intent is, and I'm going to vote no on it.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 4 has already been voted on. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing budget amendments to the water fund budget for the 22-23 fiscal year. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes, and I'm very happy that we were able to be of assistance to the town of Hempstead.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase bunker gear for the Long Beach Fire Department under New York State contract. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Absolutely, yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a new ambulance for the city's fire department under Nassau County contract. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will. Oh, sorry. Bendo's got it.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
This is a really difficult one. I don't like moving money around after we've already voted for something, so I'm going to abstain on this. I think we really need the ambulance. It's a good price, it's a good ambulance, but I don't like the way the money's being moved.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Absolutely, yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 10 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding motor vehicles and traffic. Who introduced and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
City Manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the City Clerk. Who will make a motion to close the meeting? Anyone?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
I just want to take this time to also wish Rich Barrios the best, to you and your family. I've learned a lot from you, a whole lot. And I strive to be a good council member to honor you and all your work, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. It's only wish you all the best. Thank you. So I vote yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes. All right, on to good and welfare. Or for some people, the restroom.
Dave,
How many?
how many do we have?
Not too bad.
About 6.
All right, Mr. Paganini.
15, 20.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Ron Paganini, Long Beach. All right, so I would like to give the council a copy of the total overtime that was spent last year. It covers every department of our city. I want you to take a look at this. This is your document, basically, and I want everybody to have it up here, all the council people. I just want them, I want to hand out 6 of them. Maybe Dave could take this from me. There's enough. Just hand it out to all the council people. I just want to be on the same page. This is what this is all about. I'm not getting into what's on this paper. Not at this moment. The only thing on this paper that I want you to look at is the 23,000 hours, which blows me away. Now, this is all the overtime throughout the city. $5 million worth of spent overtime. The people have to know this. You know this. The people have to know this. And you should put it on your portal. So next is basically, it was one thing to speak about overtime. It's another thing to see the overtime. It's an imperative that all the council see it. Sometimes the council can't trust each other. I know that. I'm here a long time. I know how it works here. You freeze people out, they don't even know what's going on. When the Schneerman administration was here, I would ask council people, they say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, so I want to end that. That's why I gave it to you. And I'll be bringing this up in weeks and months to come for the budget. And the budget season, to me, is critical to the taxpayers for many reasons, which I will list next meeting. I don't have time for this. I'm here for the people. I'm here for you. And I want you to do the right thing. And I know it's hard to do this right thing. Now, I'm going to end this right now, okay? But I have one question. I really need an answer to this, and maybe you gave it out already, but I'm going to ask this question. The Haberman case has been settled. What I want to know, when I say me, I mean the people. So what I want to know is the levy cost to the average homeowner. What it's going to cost the average homeowner for the $75 million which probably you had to borrow more for. I know it's a 30-year plan, and it's critical to people who are hanging by strings with their money. Okay, so that's the question. If you don't want to answer it, I'll ask it next time. So that's it.
Okay, well, our comptroller's actually on vacation, but we'll get you the answer for next meeting. I think
Very good.
Our principal and interest payment for the first year is like 5.2 million.
No, it's 5.5.
5.5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it goes down to like 4.7.
It fluctuates.
It fluctuates.
It fluctuates several years. The first one is higher, and then there's another couple of years, and then
All
there's
right,
5
you know, I really appreciate that because there's a lot of people hanging on by a thread. You know, the inflation's out of control. We know this. We know we have a lot of people. We have thousands of people here that can't afford to live here. I ran with you guys. We talked about this. We all talked about it. So, you know, we have to make effort. Listen, my time's up, but we have to make effort for the taxpayer, okay? And the people who can't make it here. All right, thank you. I'll see you next.
Yep.
As you're walking back to your seat, I'll throw this out to you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Paganini, that it's I like the way he walks too. So, especially when it's away, Ron. Anyway, so we've had conversation with this. I've spoken to to our comptroller a lot about this, and yeah, you're right. It's a lot of money. 5.5 million, rough number. When you're looking at a $50 million tax base, you know that's 10-11% to the levy. That's what it looks like. Is that exact? No, it's not exact. The exact numbers will be out when we are able to calculate exactly what the numbers are and exactly what the levy would have to be. But it's a lot of money. It's something that happened in the past. I credit this council for actually finding a way to find a path forward so that it wasn't something that the city had to find money immediately for the entire amount. So it was a very creative and long fought battle to work their way out of it. The only good side of this whole issue that I can say to you is that once that payment is built into the levy doesn't have to go up again the next year for it. It's built in. The levy's already risen, and that amount is shown in the first year, and then each year after that, that amount gets taken out. So that's the only silver lining in a very dark cloud that I can say was hanging over this city. But at least the path has been made for the improvement, for the payment, and for the clearing of the historical mistakes from the past.
We'll help you go toilet paper there. The people the houses of the people that did this.
And Ron, these numbers, these are unaudited numbers, okay? So that's where numbers are dangerous if they're taken out of context. So, you know, I got to go with what the auditors say, not, you know, hearsay or, you know, clandestine operations in City Hall to get you these numbers. You know, it's a little disappointing. So you got a question, you ask us for the numbers. We'll give you the right the real numbers, okay?
Ron, I'll tell you the same thing that Karen just said. If you really want numbers, give my office a call. I'll tell you how to structure the FOIL myself, and we'll get you what you want. This is about being as transparent as we possibly can so that the people in the public are completely informed about what needs to be done for this city. I promise you I'll give you everything you need.
All right, Eileen Hession.
Eileen Hession, Long Beach. I am going to talk about, again, the medical pavilion, and I have some photographs. Dave, would you mind handing these out? Thank you. I wrote this down so I stay within my 3 minutes.
Whoa. You okay?
I'd like to congratulate Engel Berman for the speed with which they are putting up 3 buildings with nearly 500 units. Meanwhile, South Nassau Mount Sinai has not yet completed a 20-unit building in about 3 years. The construction has destroyed the 400 block of East State Street. I've given you some pictures, I wish the audience could see them, that show what I mean. Mount Sinai promised residents there would be beautiful landscaping, and in fact, their renderings show flowers and trees around the building. What they have done instead is plant seagrass throughout. The photos show how ugly this is. When it grows tall in the summer, it will look like weeds and attract mice and other vermin. In winter, it must be cut back, so for most of the year, it will look like those photos. The workers on the site have said, "What you see is what you get. Don't bother speaking to the hospital. Speak to your building department. They approved all of it." The view as you travel north on Lincoln Boulevard is the seagrass and the remains of the old hospital, which is not only an eyesore, a blight, but probably full of hazardous waste. Why didn't Long Beach insist Mount Sinai tear it down? The construction workers said there will be no fence around the pavilion, so what you see now is the front yard for the residents of State Street. A ramp for dumpsters, garbage, laundry, and workers is plainly seen from State Street, not what a residential neighborhood should look like. More important than looks is the fact that the pavilion was built to FEMA standards. Good for them, but not good for the residents. The photos show that the building is on top of a hill. Rain already floods State Street. Now there will be tremendous runoff from the hill, causing flooding and the potential for mudslides. Crystal Lake did a fine job of advocating for a part of Long Beach that was unprotected. The city listened and will be correcting the problem. Residents of State Street have been asking for years that something be done. They even hired a lawyer. Nothing. Once the pavilion is open, Long Beach will still be missing some medical specialties, and patients will have to be transported to South Nassau. So this doesn't just affect State Street, but our entire community. So no one in all these years has helped the residents of State Street, not the city, not the building department, not the zoning board, not the politicians. They started out on State Street asking for a real hospital. Then they asked that the pavilion be built slightly further north so it's not abutting their properties. Then they asked that the pavilion provide full medical coverage. Then they asked for bulkheading and storm assistance. You know what they want now? A fence. Kids are already playing around the property. There's no security. Police have already been called. We hear how often many millions is spent on South Nassau on the Oceanside campus. Let them build a fence for State Street. And they need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hession. All right. Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake. Good evening again, everyone. I would like to follow up regarding the North Shore Critical Infrastructure Project that Mr. Fabrizio is doing a phenomenal job, as well as everyone else. Will there be a presentation regarding this project and an online update to the project? People are asking questions. The answers, I don't have the expertise, and nor should that information be coming from me. I think that would be extremely inappropriate. So hopefully there will be some type of public presentation and online update page. Secondly, there was some concerns regarding the feral cat population. Leave the cats, put them somewhere very safe, because they are truly needed. After Hurricane Sandy, when the feral cat population was displaced, the rodent population, just reproduced out of this world. And please make sure that any potential rodent elimination, that the feral cats would be kept in mind to keep them safe and sound and free from all hurt, harm, and danger. And regarding the comment that was made, yes, I must say that I actually worked on that project and voiced my concerns since on or about 2006. I moved to the city of Long Beach approximately in the late 1950s. So since from the age of 4, I've endured the flooding. I am 65 now. I made my concerns known locally, federally, and state. And it took all of this time for the North Shore Critical Infrastructure Project to occur. And thank you for everyone who partook in having this actually occur.
Thank
And-
you for being the voice.
Thank you. Also, there were other residents that provided documentation such as photos, and yes, I did combine everything and sent the information all over the place. Moving forward, I'm having a problem, an online problem with water and billing. I've been paying the water bill online for quite some time. And when I received the acknowledgement as of July 22, it says the confirmation, payment confirmation, but it says Long Beach, San Jose, California. And I was told that it was a labeling problem. I've addressed this issue numerous times. Everyone has been extremely pleasant trying to resolve this matter. But when I asked last month, I said, can I go online and make the payment? And I was informed that they believed that the information, that the labeling was corrected, or whatever the problem is. However, I do have printouts. I did leave the information in water and billing in July, and I followed up over the months, and from my understanding, as of last month, it happened to another resident.
Okay, we'll look into that, because I didn't even think we could pay our water bills online. We can?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't
Yes.
even know that.
Pay your water bills
So I've
and your
been writing
tax bills.
checks I didn't need to
And
write.
But isn't there a fee?
There's an extra fee, yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
why.
$1.
I need my dollar.
Well, I learned something new tonight.
Okay, so normally, for over a decade, I've been paying pretty much online. It would say Long Beach City, New York, or whatever the case may be. But then all of a sudden, it said Long Beach, San Jose, California.
Okay, well,
Okay?
we'll-
Thank you so much for your
We'll
time.
try to make sure your money isn't going to
To
California.
Timbuktu, right? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we have a birthday greeting for Councilwoman McGinnis. It says, "Happy birthday, Karen."
Don't be a Karen.
All right, Karen Adamo.
She left.
Whoop.
Whoa,
All right, Judy Vining.
she left.
Okay, James Hodge.
You gonna let me get out of here for my birthday,
That'll be
James?
the day.
All right, let's go.
Let you get out of here. James Hodge, 95 East Fulton Street. I am honored to be here from Nevada to Maple, from the bay to the ocean. As all of you do a job as being city council members and our representatives, you do what you can to hear all of the concerns of the residents of the city of Long Beach. And if you don't do that, they make different choices whether you will continue staying in your position or not. As a resident being here since 1976, my whole life, I thank God for being able to be here my whole life. I will say this to the council members, that you remember in each and everything that you do, remember that you're here for the people of the city of Long Beach, and you're here to serve them. Again, I am here as a resident to, again, request that you continue doing what you can to serve. And I'll just read this so it's in your hearing. You don't make progress by standing on the side whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. Today is one of my greatest heroes' birthday, and his name is the late John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis. One of his quotes says, "Do not get lost in the sea of despair. Do not become bitter or hostile. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise." I don't have a problem with that. "And get in good trouble." In 2008, the late John Lewis told me, keep getting in good trouble. And so as all of us have an obligation to keep getting in good trouble, I say to all of you, let's keep getting in good trouble. I may be getting in a little good trouble as time come along. God bless you. Thank you. Don't always listen to everything the newspapers say, but sometimes you have to. Again, I love you. Thank you. I appreciate you for taking your time. I just happen to probably maybe looking to joining you at one time, one day, but I'll explore that idea. So again, thank you for this time. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, James. All right, and that's it. Everyone, thank you for coming, and have a good night.
Happy birthday to you. Okay, bye-bye. I don't mean to cut out, but the bus is waiting for me, and I don't want to have him have too much overtime. I don't want to put too much overtime.